All right, welcome back again. We are back to working on the engine. We are going to put pistons in today. So, what have I done so far on this thing? Let's see. I cleaned it. Got it all cleaned. I got it all spray painted. This is real nice, like a gray, like a steel gray. That's what color my wife wanted it. So that's what color it is. It actually looks really nice. Anyway, let's go ahead and put these pistons in the block. I already put 2 of them in. I wanted to make sure my process is, anyway, rehearsed the whole thing before I put it on YouTube. Anyway, so I'll show you what I'm doing here. So we're gonna grab a piston here. I soaked these things in this power, that stuff overnight. Did a pretty good job. On them. Good enough for me. Then what I did is I took an old ring, one of my old rings, top ring, took it and I broke it in half. And I took that and I used that to scratch and scrape all of the carbon, well, you can't see that. So I took the old ring like this and I used it to scrape all of the old carbon buildup out of inside the rings. I did it on all of them. And it was a lot of work. So, but yeah, got them all cleaned up and then took a little bit of just oil. You can do it with motor oil too, it doesn't really matter. And then just put it back on here to keep it from flash rusting. Anyway, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna grease this. We're gonna just take a little bit of grease. This is engine assembly lube. This stuff works really well. I like this stuff, use it a lot. We're just gonna take and we're just gonna grease all around. A lot of people use engine oil for this, and that's fine too. I've always been taught to use engine assembly lube because this just helps if you know, until you get good oil pressure going on your engine. This gives it a few seconds of runtime without any issues. So get a little bit of grease on there. We're gonna slip in this ring. Don't even know what it's called, but that one goes like that. Come on. Goes like that. And it goes in there. And then my rings are numbered, third groove. It's kind of nice. Yeah, I'm sure there's somebody who'll make fun of me out there for the cheap parts I bought. But guess what? This is a budget build. This isn't a race car. So then we're gonna just take this one, we're gonna start it right there. This ring is flexible, so we can do this. Very carefully, just slip it down over the top. And we're gonna slide it right down. This one's gonna go on the bottom, below that. Slide it right down, and it is on. Pay attention to where the ends are. I'm gonna stick these ends on these oil rings. I'm gonna put them 108. Oh, there are 2 rings there. Yeah, back into the bag. I'm gonna put these 180 out from each other. Why? Just because. So one thing to notice is these actually go in above that, like that. See where the bottom one is, top one goes in there. We're just gonna start with it on that side, like that. That's how I'm gonna do it. Just like that. Oh, it got stuck in the second groove. We just walked it out. See that? Those are in, they're in the right place. That's where I'm gonna leave them. They're about 180 degrees out from each other. Some people will be extremely particular about exact degrees apart from each other. Doesn't matter. What matters is the compression can't pass by them. All right, now we're gonna start with the second ring. These bags are labeled, see, groove 2, second groove. Now, it's important to look on your rings to see if there's markings on them. This one just so happens to say right here, if you can see it, it says top. So that is gonna go on top. This one we're gonna stick on. We'll probably end up turning this anyway. I'm gonna stick it on so it's up here. So it's about 90 degrees out from where the other 2 are. And what you don't wanna, you wanna be really careful with these because these are cast. These are like a cast iron. They're extremely brittle. And you kind of want to, what I do is I start with that end like that. And then I just very carefully stretch it over. Come on, back down there. Stretch it over the piston. So I'm not overstretching the ring. I just broke my fingernail, that really hurt. Anyway, I'm not overstretching the ring. And then I just bring it right down into the groove. I want to be careful not to let the ends scratch the piston. I also want to make sure it goes into the correct groove. See, it went into the top groove. It's okay, we're just going to move it right down to the next one down. Very carefully. Okay, come on, there we go. See, we're not sitting here really trying to stretch it and press it and move it. Yes, I know they make special pliers for that. No, I don't have any. Okay, so we're gonna set that this side of the piston, and then, so it's about 90 degrees out from our oil rings, and then our top groove ring, we're gonna install exactly the same way as the second groove ring. So again, we're gonna look on this one and see if it says anything on top or bottom. This one does not. What you also want to look for is on the end of the ring, right here. You're looking for a profile. The second groove ring has, I don't know if you can see it, a profile on it. It's not symmetrical top to bottom. This first groove ring actually is symmetrical, and there's no dot, there's no writing, there's no anything. So I'm going to assume these don't matter which way they go. So we're going to start there. And we're just going to slowly, very carefully stretch it over the piston, slide it down into the ring groove, and there we're in. So then this is important. You never want to have your grooves aligned. With two-stroke pistons, there's actually a pin where the ends of the groove go. These pistons don't have that. So you want to make sure this one's here, they're about 180 degrees out from each other. No big deal. Oil rings are on the other 180 degrees out from each other there, 90 degrees out from the top. That's how you install your rings on your piston. Now we're gonna go put the piston in the block. One thing to take into account to know which way the piston goes in the block. So, what's important, we're gonna take the cap off of here. Pull that cap off. Okay, dots. These are all stock stuff, right? The dots are the same. You want to make sure you don't get things mixed up. Everything goes. You can mark the pistons. I didn't mark the pistons because it doesn't really matter as to which hole they go in. But what you do want to do is pay attention to this cap has to go with this rod. That is critical. All right, we're gonna put a rod bearing in like this. Take that. There's a groove in it. There's also a groove right there on the piston, on the connecting rod. What I do is I just take it and I stick it right in that groove, like that. Get it in the groove, about flush there, and then I just very carefully push this. Oh, it went sideways. You want to just very carefully push that down, just like that. Then I'm going to take more of my trusty old grease, put a little dab-a-doo on there, and smear that in. Just got a nice even coating on there. Now let's go over to the motor. We are going to decide which hole this goes in. Does it go in the number 4 hole or does it go in the number 3 hole? So these pistons have a divot in them right here that goes towards the front of the block up here. Now we also have, so on the bottom of the rods there are 2 chamfers. There's a large chamfer here. If you look at that, there's a large chamfer there and there's a very small chamfer here. The small chamfers go towards each other. So this piston, we're going to go this towards the front of the block. which puts this chamfer here, and we want to make sure this chamfer goes towards the crankshaft, this side goes to the other connecting rod, which would mean this piston goes in the number 3 hole. So let's turn the block and slide it in there. Okay, block's turned. We know which way it goes. Number 3 hole, large chamfer towards. What you notice, what really makes a difference is right here. Makes a really big difference is right here on the crankshaft. There's a chamfer right here and right here. You want to make sure the large chamfer goes towards that. So, anyway, okay. You have orientation, you have the right orientation. I just kind of set it in here. And then I'm going to grab my spring compressor. Ring compressor, not spring compressor. This one compresses springs very well. And let's open it up. Okay. Opened up a ways. So I just kind of set the piston right there like that. And I'm going to work my spring compressor over the top of these rings. You want to be very careful with these. I have broke a ring before. When I was working with my dad, we were putting a 455, an old jet boat. Kind of a sweet old boat we're putting together. So I was doing pistons for him, piston rings, and I cranked down too hard. I wasn't being careful enough, cranked down too hard on the piston compressor, and I broke a ring. So we want to be very careful putting this together. So got the piston compressor over the top of the rings. What I'm going to do, I want to make sure, kind of hold the piston a little bit and make sure this moves freely. If it moves freely, that means I don't have anything binding. Don't have any ring out of the groove. We're just going to crank that down just a little bit. We're not cranking down hard. And then we're going to hold the piston, back and forth a little more. And we just kind of keep repeating that. I've got a ways to go before I'm actually pressing the rings. Okay, now I'm to the point where I'm actually touching the rings and starting to push them into the piston. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold the piston. I'm going to move this ring compressor a little bit around to make sure those rings are still moving freely. And then I'm going to crank it down just a little bit more. I'm going to do it again. Just move it around. You know, yeah, it gets harder and harder to move as you go because it's getting tighter and tighter. And then I'm going to crank it down probably last time right here. And we're tight. And we're going to look, make sure we're nice and tight around the piston. It's actually, this one's actually a little bit looser around the top, but it is nice and tight around the bottom. You want to make sure you don't have your spring compressor upside down. This spring compressor has little lips on them like that. And you should only be able to put your wrench in the top. Anyway, so before we put this in the block, let's triple check again. Bearing is installed. The large chamfer is going towards that end. The divot on the piston is going towards the front of the block. And we're going to set this in the hole very carefully. You don't want to scratch the sides of your block. Then we're going to come down here. We're going to look at where the crankshaft is, and we're going to turn that to where we're not going to hit that crankshaft while we're tapping this in. So take my rag. I'm going to clean my crankshaft right here just a little bit, make sure I don't have anything on it. It's my clean rag. Okay, now we're going to kind of eyeball this, make sure it's centered in the bore. And we're just going to slowly, very carefully tap. We're not hitting it hard. We're just you can almost just drop the hammer on it like that. Very, very gently tapping the piston in. Because if in fact you have a ring that gets caught up, if you hit it real hard, you'll break the ring. And you should be able to catch it. You're just slowly tapping, okay? Just getting past the first rings. once you're all the way in, remember we turned the crankshaft so it wouldn't hit here. We're gonna go like this. Hopefully you can see this. We're gonna reach right. You can't see this. Yeah, you can. All right, we'll reach down here. We're gonna guide our rod onto our crankshaft. We do not want to touch that crankshaft. Anything but the bearing. We're in. See, guided it right on there carefully. See, it's all the way down, you can hear it, and you grab your connecting rod, you move it back and forth, it still has play, everything's loose, everything's good. Take your cap, stick your bearing in it just like you did with the other one, dab your engine assembly lube, and I just smear it in, just like that. And then come down here, the dots, everything lines up. And if you don't have dots, make sure on a small block Chevy, these are on the little holders are on the same side. And we're just gonna take that very carefully, slide it on. Roll our nuts on there like that. And then choose your method of just putting a little bit on those things. We're not going to torque them down yet. See, that one's tight. There. There, that's it. That's it. That's all we're going to do for now. That piston is installed, and that's all there is to it. So I have to do that 5 more times. And yeah, it's repetitive. After I'm done doing that, I'll go ahead and I'll torque all my the nuts down here. I'll go through and torque all those. I'm not going to do that until everything's installed. So even after you put a little, tighten those up just a little bit, you check, your rod still moves. So that's it. That's all it takes to put pistons in. So I already did the crankshaft, the main bearings on it. It was, just take your time, be careful. Just like I did the connecting rod bearings, same thing. Slide them in, grease them, stick your crankshaft on, caps, put it all together. So that's how you install small block Chevy pistons. Be the same for most engines. So I know people who disagree with me with how I do it. Everybody has their own way of doing it. This is how I do it. And I've done a lot of engines and it has worked fine so far. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching.